This episode of the Move Mind podcast was brought to you by CBD Mountain, the sport and fitness CBD. Head over to cbdmountain.com for a range of soft gels, skin balms, oils and vapes, and purchase online and have the premium quality CBD delivered directly to your door. cbdmountain.com. Welcome to the Move Mind podcast. I'm here with Ben Dyson, world-class BJJ black belt, Scramble athlete, and head BJJ coach at Lions MMA Vancouver. Ben, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, mate, no worries. My pleasure.
Thank you very much. Yeah, appreciate it. Excited to chat to you and pick your brains on a few bits and bobs today. We're coming live and direct from quarantine time, so I appreciate you taking time out of the busy quarantine schedule to
Yes.
come on the show. So already we detect an accent. So before coming out here to Vancouver, where were you? Where are you from in the UK, and is that where your jiu-jitsu path begins?
Yeah. I'm from a town. I always say I'm from Bournemouth because I don't know. It seems to be the town that most people know over Poole. But Bournemouth and Poole are two towns together, and that's where I'm from. I'm from Poole, and that's where I started doing my jiu-jitsu. I started about close to 11 years ago now. My long all-time professor, Roy Dean, opened a school about 2 miles from my house, run by one of his purple belts called Steve Greenaway. And that's where I started going. And it was just infectious. It was like a snowball rolling downhill. As soon as I started, I trained every day. And then from training every day, I found other clubs that I could train, more than once a day. And it was just, it went from there really. From there, I went to one of my, again, longtime friends, a guy called Jeff Lawson. He opened a gym called Ippon in the centre of Bournemouth. It's originally an MMA gym. And again, as soon as he opened that, I was there every day. That's when I started doing striking as well. But really brought my jiu-jitsu forward by training with all those guys. And after a while, as I say, I was there. He started me off teaching as well when I was a purple belt. So I taught for a number of years at his academy and really, found my feet and found comfort with teaching too. And then after that, that's when I decided to kind of I was traveling in and out of the US anyway, because Roy was always still my professor, right? So I was periodically going to train in the States with him when Roy had his academy in Oregon. But after that, I decided to go further afield and stay out for longer periods of time, to try and improve more and more. And that's kind of how I ended up over this way in the Americas.
Amazing. Yeah, cool. We'll delve a bit more into the history on your journey for sure, and some highlights at each belt level and all that good stuff. So recently, then you were made head coach for Lions MMA here in Vancouver, which is a fantastic achievement. And that's your first head coach program at black belt, is that right?
Absolutely. Well, first head coach program, totally overall.
Amazing.
I mean, I was slightly resistant. I mean, I had a few opportunities before, and always people were on me like, "Oh, why aren't you teaching full time? Why are you working other jobs?" But my resistance to it was I never wanted to put all my eggs in one basket. My biggest worry was I got so much pleasure from just doing jiu-jitsu and it being my hobby that as soon as it becomes a line of work, and you need the work to get bread on the table, it becomes less fun, and the hobbies and the fun part gets removed. That was always my resistance to it, but it hasn't been the case since I joined Lions. It was a great choice. I'm really happy with Lions, full of great people, and I'm loving taking the head coach role there. It's been great.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, the Lions team and the Lions gym is a unique place, definitely. So how have you approached running then your first jiu-jitsu program full time as a head coach? What are some of the things that you've done there to kind of bring to the table?
Well, first of all, it's not something I take lightly. Okay, so it's I understand that with me taking a role like that, it's my name above the door. It's my responsibility for the level overall in the gym, and it was my responsibility. to bring that level up. So yeah, it's something that I don't know, it's something that is really important to me, you know. So in answer to your question, what I've tried to implement, first of all, like with starting with the beginners, I really wanted everyone and the people teaching the beginners on the same page and iron out like a specific way of what I wanted them to pick up first, you know, so like we can really systemize and make the beginner's progression linear, like rather than just all over the place, you know. So all the beginners are learning the same escapes, all the beginners are learning the same kind of basic guard passes, you know, and that will translate then that we get a very similar level once they're ready to progress and join a more advanced setup in the adult class.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. So
Yeah. For the I guess on that note, for the beginners, then let's jump into that a little bit. So, through the eyes of the beginner, what can they expect? They turn up; it's the first time at Lions. They haven't really done either gi or no gi before. What can they expect there? You mentioned a few things on like some basic moves, basic escapes. What can they expect when they walk through the door and jump in the beginners program?
emphasis on obviously learning basic movements, you know, basic movements, and a large emphasis on escapes. All right, escapes and things that I don't know, even things that say they decide to drop out after a couple of months, things they can still take with them.
Right.
For example, getting up safely to their feet may sound to the untrained person. I know how to get up to my feet, but getting up without exposing your back, getting up, you know, in a manner that's not going to let you be kicked in the head, that type of thing, you know. That's important for me. I feel like that's important, and yeah, and then just getting the basics down, and then after that, getting comfortable with, you know, the training aspect. Slowly implementing training. Like when I say training, I mean like rolling and live training. So we close that off first of all. So say for example, the first taste of beginners live training would be just escaping the mount. Just one person trying to hold the mount, the other person trying to escape it. You know, that gives them the taste of what it's like to, you know, try and fight somebody off, have success or not, okay, and learn from it. Try and implement the mount escapes that they've learned in class. And yeah, that's kind of my idea with the beginners. Ease them in gently, but still get them doing live training. Like some academies say, oh, they're not supposed to roll until they've got 2 stripes or 1 stripe. In my opinion, that's ridiculous. Yeah, just get them into live training as soon as possible because it's easy. You can show somebody a mount escape in 10 minutes. You can show the other person how to hold the mount in 5 minutes. And then you can say, okay, you two, go. You try and hold the mount. You try and escape the mount. You know, there you go. Live training's already begun.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you find that localizing the live training to a specific position is a safer way for getting people started early rather than just saying go for it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you're always going to have those people that want to go for it from the start.
Yeah.
You know, I was one of those.
Yeah.
I think, you know, but yeah, it's just like focus sparring is beneficial, in my opinion, all the way up. Like, especially, like I said, I've been lucky to travel around and train at a lot of, I'd say, many of the best academies on the planet. And so I take a lot of my teaching styles and yeah, it's not like I copy it. I mean, I implement some of my own stuff too, but definitely the structure of what these places offer and are successful for them, I definitely try and implement into what I'm providing at Lions.
Absolutely, yeah. And are there any things that stand out in your mind then that you've seen at other academies on your travels that you think, you know what, I really like how they do that. Let's implement our version of that here in Canada.
Yeah, for sure. So I trained a long time on and off at Atos in San Diego, and was fortunate to have like some of the best training partners there in the world.
Yeah,
you know, I went there as a brand new black belt and certainly got my ass kicked, but but learned a few things, you know, and especially with the training. So to give you an example of what you asked me, kind of eradicating the traditional warm up first and foremost. For example,
being I know what you mean.
Yeah, the traditional, you know, everyone stand in a circle and move like with your heads forward and back, and you do 20 minutes of like bear crawls and cartwheels and that type of stuff. It's all well and good, but like in my opinion, like as it seems in their opinion, that can be done in your own time. You don't need somebody coaching you through that. Like to just 9 times out of 10 turn up and start with technique is far more beneficial. And those 15-20 minutes at the end of class used for extra sparring rounds. Yeah, that's definitely my opinion. Yeah, anyone can, you can do your body weight stuff in your own time.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's amazing how once you, I guess for the beginners, that kind of stuff is useful, right? It comes into the learning like movements kind of category, because they might not know how to forward roll. They might have never even been
Yeah,
in contact with the floor unless they've fallen on it before. So
exactly.
that
The
it has
basic
its
movements are
place.
covered. Yeah.
Yeah, it's covered there. But as soon as you've graduated from that division, it's time to use technique and drills as the warm up, and just make the most of mat time. Now I like that approach. I've been in classes before where 30 minutes has been spent on forward rolls and cartwheels, and starting to think, hang on a minute, that's half the class is gone now. Like
Exactly.
we're losing mat time. Yeah,
And with beginners, is kind of as you mentioned, with beginners, that's kind of okay. Like the beginners, they need to learn how to move like that. They need to, to a certain extent, they need to get the fitness in. They need that force movement fitness
yeah,
that you're going to get from doing something like that, not just an instructor turning up and gassing on for 10 minutes about technique.
yeah, yeah.
When
Absolutely.
they're not in that headspace just yet, they might not be.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And any other things from academies that you've gleaned, that you've seen, you think that's really good? I mean, you mentioned Atos there. Any other ones that you've travelled to that was really eye opening?
Yeah. So again, Atos was the one that I was at like most. Like I was there on and off. Like I went 3 times, 3 separate occasions on and off. Probably for a total of about a year. Like full time training, I was there, but on and off for 2. As well as that, I spent a couple of weeks at Fight Sports in Miami with
Oh, nice.
Cyborg Abreu,
Cyborg, yeah.
and there's some real killers on the map there.
Wow.
And yeah, it was another fantastic academy as well. Like they welcomed me there with open arms, and some absolute beasts, as I say. Cyborg being one of them.
Yeah, he's a big
Yeah,
lad.
yeah, big lad, and yes, really very skillful too. So how they train, how these top academies train is like, there's one thing that's synonymous with all of them, is that they roll really really hard.
Okay.
There's no flowing. I mean, you can flow to kind of warm up.
First round.
First round ease in. Nobody wants to get caught cold. With injuries and whatnot. But really, everyone's there and everyone's going close to 100% for every round. Nobody wants to lose a round.
Yeah, interesting.
And
Nobody
wants to lose a round.
Yeah, that breeds a kind of a severity in the school that transfers into competition, right? Yeah, it makes sense. You got to come from some sort of severity to carry that through and compete at world class level.
They say, as a few people said, well, Andre and a couple of he says, you don't rise to the occasion when you compete. You fall to your level of training.
Right. Yeah.
So that kind of stuck with me too. I love training hard. Like having a 50% session is, I don't know what it's like. I've never done one. So, but I wouldn't be interested in doing one either.
Yeah, not the way to go. Yeah, very interesting. There's a lot to be said in other sports where there's periodization models, right? There's heavy days, there's light days, there's hard days, there's softer days. But actually, when it comes to jiu-jitsu, I remember you mentioned to me before, it's very hard to overtrain, to actually really overtrain. It's very difficult to do that.
For sure.
So there's room to go 100% in rounds often.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Absolutely. I mean, having maybe one super heavy spar, let's say for example, you're training for competition, having one super heavy sparring session in the day, maybe for over an hour, and maybe another slightly lighter where you go for a little bit less, and maybe if you wanted to put some conditioning in too, that's a good day. that's a good day for a competition training schedule.
Yeah, that's, and by most people's accounts, that's hardcore. But in the competition world, that's kind of bare minimum what you need to be world
For sure.
class, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right, the path to black belt. Then this is a series of questions I've been wanting to pick your brains on for quite some
Hmm.
time now.
Hmm.
You're an established black belt now, but you were a white belt once, believe it or not.
I was.
There was a starting point. Now, before you even got into jiu-jitsu, did you have any previous kind of sporting attributes or athletic attributes to your name before you even got into the combat sports world? Did you play any other sports or for teams or anything?
I played sports my entire younger life growing up.
Right.
Started with football, then got into playing cricket. Cricket was actually probably my best sport, the sport that I was best at throughout when I was a kid. Yeah, oddly enough, a very gentlemanly sport. Takes a long time, but a great sport, and a great sport that the people that I got involved with from cricket were fantastic people, like some of the best people I've ever met. Because you end up spending such a long time with these people, right?
Yeah.
You're there with them all day, and it's I also played rugby at university too. So yeah, I had a full kind of spectrum of sports. By the time I started combat sports, I was ever so bored of team sports.
Okay.
I recognised that I wasn't good enough to be a professional in any of them. Cricket's probably where I got the closest, but not not really close enough. I still have dropped out a few stages below. Yeah, and after that, like, I didn't really want to settle for the mediocrity, right? I wanted something that I could, go after and still rise up through the ranks in. And yeah, the combat sports avenue definitely gave me that.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting shift, and often a pattern you hear a lot. Individual sports, people get into them because they're done with the team sports arena. They've given it a go, and they're like, that's not working for me, and then they go into the solo game. You
Hmm.
definitely hear that a lot in the MMA and combat sports world. So you've got a sporting background, and then where does it begin for starting jiu-jitsu? At what point do you think, you know what, cricket probably not going to go pro in this angle. I'm going to walk into that gym over there, and I'm going to try and choke some people out. How did you how did you cross over into that?
I think it was the same for most people, right? I saw I was always a boxing fan. Always watched boxing on TV. Um, but then I saw the Ultimate Fighting DVDs, and I was like, "Oh, what's this?" Saw people being choked out. I was like, gotta learn this. Obviously UFC one, the catalyst for most people
Yeah.
starting grappling. Yeah, and I phoned a few people, like, and when I came back from this time, I actually dropped out of university as well, so it was a bit of a low time for me. I was drinking a lot, out of shape. I really needed something to kickstart me, and it really was. I was really fortunate to find jiu-jitsu. It's really what it did for me. The white belt for me was all about me sort of shedding um, all the crap that I'd done before.
Yeah.
Like all of the I stopped drinking and going out as much. I I literally, when I was a white belt, in the first 3 months I started jiu-jitsu, I think I lost about close to 3 stone. So like 40, 42 odd pounds. Like just
Wow.
in 3 months. Yeah, just fell off me.
Wow.
Absolutely fell off me. And yeah, and I was like, oh, what is this? Like, as in, it was training, and like the fitness was just a byproduct.
Yeah.
I wasn't like spending doing a run and spending the whole 60 minutes of the run being like, this is the worst thing ever. I was involved in sparring. The fitness was a byproduct because I was so worried about getting choked out or trying to get the other person off of me.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about the training, the fitness aspect. It
Yeah.
just happened.
Yeah. It's an extra, really useful add-on, isn't it? Just by a byproduct of being on the mats, you get
Yeah,
fitter whether you realize it or not. What are some of
exactly.
the things that stood out to you as a white belt getting into jiu-jitsu then? I mean, did you find it difficult? Did you find it easy? Was it a challenge, or did you kind of settle in straight away?
As I said, I was always strong. I always had strength. Um, and Steve, my first kind of jiu-jitsu instructor, always said to me, you know, do your best to just not use strength. like to kind of do your best to use technique, and learn the technique. And you're going to find this easy. You're not going to be so tired, the standard stuff. And yeah, as soon as the light bulb started going off and I landed my first techniques, it was, then I got it. It did take me a while. It wasn't like white belt wasn't, I wasn't like, I wouldn't say I was a natural when I began.
Okay.
I would say I was, I just tried, I got away with a lot of things because I could muscle through them.
Sure. Did you start once a week, one class a week, and then think, oh, I like this, I'm going to go a bit more? Or did you just go straight in every day as much as you could? Or?
Straight in every day as much as I could. Every day.
He did.
Every day as much as I could, yeah. And then I was actively looking for other clubs as well to go to, and that's obviously how I found Jeff's. I continued training. I mean, Roy kind of dissolved his club after a while at home, and I was just training at Ippon, with Jeff. But I was still, as I say, we would train all over. Sometimes I would go up to London and try and train with people up there. Just anybody that I could, anybody that I knew that would give me some sort of benefit.
The seeker's mindset. Yeah, it's amazing what you can get done if you hunt after it, right? If you're hungry, even as a hungry white belt, which most white belts tend to be hungry because they're passionate, right? And it's new, it's a novelty. Yeah. But you knew, I think, from what you're telling me and from what I've known about you from getting to know you and training under you, is that you knew this was going to go somewhere for you if you put the effort in. This was an avenue. It wasn't just a hobby. It was going to go somewhere. And did you know that at white belt? Did you know, what, this is a bit of me? Or did it take a while for you to kind of discover that was your path, as it were?
Yeah, what I knew, I don't think I could ever say that I knew that at white belt, no. But what I did know at white belt, that it was a benefit to me. Right. That's what I knew. That's all I knew. And probably all that I knew through blue belt too. Right. And again, I knew that I was I was accelerating at a higher level than those around me, like those people that I was training with, because I was doing better and better and better. Like, how you always gauge yourself against that person in class, and you want to beat that person that beats you narrowly. You want to try and first of all stop them beating you. Then after you stop them beating you, you want to just start beating them a little bit, And I was doing that. I was doing that with people. So I knew that, I was doing okay. I knew I was doing the right thing. I was on the right track. Yeah,
absolutely. It's got an inbuilt feedback loop, hasn't it, jiu-jitsu, where you can objectively measure your progress. It's pretty obvious.
Exactly.
If you're getting smashed by this one Joseph chap every week, and then suddenly you tap Joseph, you're like, well, hang on a minute, that's a darn sight better than I was 6 months ago.
That's it.
How long were you at the white belt kind of level for before you got your blue belt?
Just pretty much a year. But as I was there so much, I've learned all the techniques necessary. Roy has a systematic approach again for graduating white belts. It's very clear what he wants from a blue belt. Very clear.
Amazing.
He wants a set of techniques for you to be able to reproduce, without any kind of to reproduce correctly. Yeah. Produce them, without any prompts. Obviously, your level of rolling needs to be up there, and you need to, carry yourself in a certain way. And it's very clear what he wanted, so I worked towards that and got my techniques done. I was kind of doing okay against blue belts in rolling, so I was, fairly confident of that. And then, my instructor Steve said, "Okay, let's graduate you to blue belt."
Yeah, how did that feel? I bet that was
it was good. It was nice just to know that you weren't a beginner anymore. Yeah. And then once I got the blue belt, that was it. Like, I was just, if I was crazy for a white belt, I was just there twice as much at blue belt. And obviously it was the exact time where Jeff opened his school, and I was there just literally from the time that I finished work, I would be there until the gym closed. Pretty much every night. So just on the mats all the time.
Amazing. Yeah. And did you find on your path that blue belt was kind of the the fork in the road where some people would drop off at that point and others would get the bug even more?
Absolutely. I mean, I can list, many blue belts I've encountered that I encountered at an early time where I was a white, blue, or purple belt, and they've still got the blue belt rank. It's very true. At that rank, people realize very quickly that it's, there's still an awful lot to learn. They're far away from any kind of position of knowledge. Obviously, they have the basic knowledge. Okay,
Sure. Yeah.
They've done their bit. They've done their 2 or 3 years, or 1 to 3 years, depending on how much they're training weekly. But then they realize, to get to the next rank, I'd say the longest belt is probably the blue belt, right? The time that you're from blue to purple is very long for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's linking those techniques together. It's not just a set move list like blue belt is. If I have to define what a purple belt is, it's in my opinion, it's somebody that's linking these moves together. Yeah, so they're understanding combinations. They're starting to kind of set traps and really develop a game of their own.
Yeah, that's it. It's a development and expression of their own style, isn't it? At purple,
Mm-hmm.
it's evolution on just individual clumped techniques that you just kind of got a database in your head, and now it's about linking it and expressing it, and like you say, developing a game. I don't think the game doesn't even come into it at white belt. It's pure survival and naivety, and then as you get better, purple, you start to develop that. What was some of the things that you gravitated towards in terms of developing your own game then, from blue into purple? What kind of, were there certain parts of the game that you were like, that's a bit of me, I think I'm gonna develop my game around that?
For sure. Blue belt, all I did at blue belt was pull guard, pull close guard, pull some sort of collar sleeve guard, and try and triangle people. And that's how I developed a half decent triangle, right? So that still stays with me. I still use a lot of the techniques that I developed and was using at blue belt now.
Amazing.
So I was able, I really ran with it then. That's all I was trying to do. I was rarely trying to take people down and get on top. I was very much a bottom player.
Interesting. And then from there, now, I mean, you're obviously at black belt. You're well versed in lots of areas. Was there a conscious decision to say, right, I've got the bottom guard side of things dealt with? I'm going to start, learning a bit of the top game and a bit of pressure stuff and stuff like that?
Absolutely. I mean, while I was on top, I was kind of okay, but I recognized that the hole in my game was definitely like the stand-up section. And obviously, I was training this all throughout. I was doing a lot of stand-up work because I was doing MMA when I was a blue belt. Through blue, through purple, even into brown belt, I was still doing MMA. So it was, how do I say? It was a hole in my game, but I was working on it. I was working on it hard. All right, and then I was just enjoying working on taking people down, and I love the dominance of taking somebody down a certain position, passing their guard, and choking them or finishing them in some other way. That's what I wanted my jiu-jitsu to be.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, you saw the light bulb and thought, I'm going to make my own game around that. And then have you always trained, I mean, you mentioned there MMA, have you always trained no gi and gi kind of alongside each other?
Yes, absolutely. But just because of MMA, because of I don't know, I was gravitated towards no gi. I was preferred no gi. I mean, I'll always train in the gi. For me, it's very important to keep up both.
Yeah.
Just because I don't feel like I never wanted to be one dimensional in anything. And so I do enjoy training in the gi, but my love will always be training without the gi in the no gi section. Yeah, absolutely. And what I say, we'll come to that later, I suppose, when you talk about competition and things like that. And I can't explain why and rule sets.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then progressing up into brown belt. Now that to me is another defining benchmark. Once you from the purple, you've gone into the brown belt. You're in the advanced category now. Where was it that you got your brown belt, and how was that concept?
I got my brown belt from Roy. So Roy Dean, as I mentioned before, at his academy in Bend in Oregon.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was an awesome moment. I'd been a purple belt for quite a long time. Maybe I've been a purple belt for about 2 years. About 2 years. I got my purple belt in about 2.75 years.
Yep.
Total, and then another 2 years to get brown belt. And brown belt's kind of it's an acknowledgement that you are going to be a black belt someday.
If you just stick with it.
Yeah. As I say, I wanted to mention, obviously, with these belts, right? Belts, I feel people get far too fixated on belts.
Right.
You know, the belts are for kind of, I don't know, the professor to kind of organize you in class, right? It's a tip of the cap. It's a well done. You know, you're at that level. You're progressing. Yeah, but it's not. I think people get far too fixated on it. It's not. It's not of great importance. You know, you'll find that you'll start improving your jiu-jitsu a lot more if you focus on, you know, anything but the color of your belt. Just
Really,
get
yeah.
into training. Yeah, in my opinion, for sure.
Yeah, and I guess on that note, is that's some advice then you're giving to the guys and girls at Lions? Then is that the belt is really just it's a measuring tool, but it's not
Hmm.
the absolute focus. I guess turning up and training is one of the things that you encourage and suggest to all your students. What else can they be
Absolutely.
focusing on instead of getting fixated on gradings and belts on?
Yeah, just as I say, turning up and training, being, like creating a good atmosphere in the class. I think everyone's been doing this great at Lions. You know, like, I always emphasize, I want to create a tough training environment, but at the same time, I really want to create, a nice friendly place. You know, there's no reason why you can't be both. There's no reason why you have to be mean and a dick just because you're training super hard. That's fine. I mean, and I always emphasize as well with the students is, there's a variety of students in our classes. There's lots, and you got to pick your fights. So pick the people that you're going to go hard with. Pick the people that that are close to you in level, right? That are maybe similar size that can take it if you guys decide to turn things up a notch.
Yeah,
There's no use if you're a, I don't know, 220-pound purple belt. There's no use you crushing a white belt that's 160 pounds. There's no use to you. Work on your movement. You know, move around them. Don't try and force and impose your will for the 10th submission in the round. That's my opinion.
yeah. That's another thing I've noticed you're really good at is creating a positive atmosphere. You're a very approachable, a very approachable black belt. I don't know why. There's sometimes you get elitist attitudes in sport where you think, oh yeah, look at so and so, they're very accomplished. There's no way I could go and talk to them because of their status. But
No,
that's never
yeah,
been the case with you. I've watched how you interact with a lot of the students, all levels and staff, and you're very approachable and very good at creating an atmosphere. What kind of I guess like tips to other coaches out there, like when they're creating an atmosphere at their academies, what kind of things do you kind of suggest people do to keep it like hard training, but also
hmm
a fun space?
yeah. Still, like having like encouragement's the best thing, I think. To encourage
Right.
people to do this, to train into it. Like the ways that they got to improve is to be on the mat.
Yeah.
I offer these guidelines, and I will point out as well if somebody's actively doing something that I don't enjoy, that I don't want to see. Like if somebody's, I don't know, taking things too far or actively, maybe trying to like pick fights with the wrong people,
Yeah.
I will point that out. And I always like try and keep a sense of. I certainly don't think my word is the be all and end all or anything like that. I understand that I'm learning. I'm always learning. I've got a lot to learn, and I still get guidance from people that I feel are more knowledgeable than me and that are above me. And I think it's important for instructors to keep that mindset rather than being like, oh, okay, I'm top of the local food chain. I know everything. This is how I go. This is what I do, and this is the right way to do it. That's not my approach.
No, it seems like you're forever a student. You've got your brown belt, you've arrived, you get your black belt. I guess that must have been a pretty pretty massive moment to achieve, and you get your black belt. What was did it feel like I've arrived, or did it feel like, holy shit, I thought this was the end of the journey and it's just the start?
Yeah. So this has gone with brown belt, really. Like, I must mention the brown belt for me. Brown belt was a crazy time. Like, as in, I was really, brown belt's probably the year where I competed the most, brown, and probably towards the end of purple belt. So
Right.
when I started flying internationally to compete, it was, it started having success in lots of submission only competitions, even starting to get onto pro shows, and the big shows. I was starting to get onto those. So it was a real big kind of like, oh, okay, brown belt was probably where I realized that, I could be up there if I push myself and I continue to sort of seek out the best training, and and not be worried about moving away if I needed to move away. Then this was the time that I realized, yeah, I could do this. It was also the time where I hurt my knee, where I had a real bad injury, which set me back a long way. Yeah, but then just to gloss over that, first of all, with the answer to your question, the black belt. Yeah, getting my black belt, I've been a brown belt for 3.5 years, to put that in perspective.
Yeah,
Nearly as much as time as I've been at all the other belts combined.
Right. Yeah, there you go. That sounds about right.
Yeah, so it was, I've been a brown belt for a long time. Yeah, and when I finally got my black belt, it was awesome. It was great. So because I'd had a year out of training, like my total amount of training, it was 8 years since I started, but the total amount of training that I had was 7 years, because I'd had a year out. Yeah, and it was, I got my black belt in front of everybody at Coachella Valley BJJ. It's where my instructor trains now, where Roy trains now in Palm Desert. Yeah, and there was about 10 to 15 black belts there, because I train there periodically now. Whenever I'm in Southern California, I always make sure I go down and see Dan and Anthony down there that run Coachella Valley BJJ. So shout out to them if they end up listening.
Wicked.
Awesome bunch of people down there, great academy. And to be honest, that's where I learn how they run an academy with the etiquette they demand, and how friendly they are and how approachable they are as people on the mat. That's where I get a lot of my my ideals and what I aspire to be as an instructor. They're not trying to, as I say, they want people to be the best they can be, and they train hard and they encourage hard training. But at the same time, they know they're not gonna. They know they're not like the Atos. They really make sure that, like, I don't know, the environment and atmosphere they create is second to none, really, for a jiu-jitsu academy.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I can imagine you gleaned a few tips and tricks from those guys then to bring into Lions and running your own side of things. Yeah, that's amazing. I wanted to touch on a little bit, Benny, with like rule sets affecting the game of jiu-jitsu, because obviously jiu-jitsu has a background in being a martial art to protect yourself and damage people. Then it evolved into a sport too, right? After UFC, it's now there's sport jiu-jitsu as we know it. Do you have a rule set preference for yourself?
Absolutely. 100%, 100%. The ADCC rule set is the best rule set in grappling, in my humble opinion.
And the ADCC consists of, just so for if people don't know who are listening, what's the rough overview of the ADCC one?
Okay, so the rough idea of the ADCC rule set is, the time is split in half. Okay, so for the trials, they have. The trials are 6-minute matches initially. There are overtimes, and they say if you qualify in the trials and you get to the finals, the ADCC finals, they're 10-minute matches. Apart from the finals, which are 20-minute matches. So the finals are the finals. Okay, so these time periods are throughout split in half. The first half of these time periods being submission only. All right, so you can't get penalty points for pulling guard. It's just a straight submission only match. You get mounted, you get your back taken. There's no points or anything. It's purely to see if the other person can submit the other. And then halfway through, the referee will go points. And that's when it's time for the points to be counted. So say, for example, you're in back mount on somebody prior to the referee saying points.
Yeah.
All I would need to do would take my hook out for 3 seconds. After he said points, obviously, replace my hook, and for 3 seconds, I'd still get the back mount points. So you are still going to be in advantage if you are positionally dominating somebody, you know. But it does give that the submission only, the submission hunters, it gives them that chance at the beginning of the match, you know, where they can go gung ho without fearing being scored upon. And I think that's really, really important. Because we want to encourage a submission, right? The submission is the ultimate. The submission is the knockout blow.
Yeah.
And then there are finer ways to decide. There's a lot less grey areas I find in ADCC compared to, you know, the advantages and the grey areas of the IBJJF rule set.
Okay, it's a bit more clear cut.
Absolutely, a bit more clear cut. Like the definitions of scoring, having the judges score the points, not the referee, is very, very important too. They have judges at the side of the table,
okay,
you know, which score the match, not the referee. The referee's there to enforce and, you know, and highlight stalling and things like that. But he has other eyes to help with them too. For example,
interesting. Yeah,
in the difference in the IBJJF's rule set, there are people just keeping score, but it's the referee's job to announce the score. You see,
it's quite a task for one person to keep an eye on two people trying to kill each other and score it and judge for foul play, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, you know, we do have the problem I find in IBJJF, which you don't have in ADCC, is the influence of people at the side.
Okay.
You know? Yeah, I've seen numerous IBJJF matches which have been heavily influenced by people shouting from the side. You know,
really, just heckling. Yeah. Is that trying to heckle the scoring from the referee's part, or?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I don't want to, like, you know, single anybody out, but it's just some things that I've seen. Yeah, influencing outcomes of matches from the outside. You
Amazing.
know, maybe in a match with somebody coached by a name against somebody coached by a non-name. You know?
Interesting. And is that because there's a social pressure that gets put on the referee then to kind of buckle to the willpower of the sideline? Is that what happens?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, in ADCC, the referees are all the same too. Like, you have the same referees travel around for the trials in all continents. They'll fly around and then they'll be at the finals as well. And yeah, the referee, it's clearly emphasized in every rules meeting. There's a rules meeting before every ADCC event, before every single one. They clearly explain the rules. They give you the opportunity to ask any questions. This is after you've just weighed in, you know, so it's fresh in the mind before you step on the mat. You have the opportunity to ask any questions. And I just think it's the clearer rule set. It's the more, you know, the easiest rule set to determine who the better grappler is.
Yeah, interesting, because arguably rule sets do shape sporting syllabuses, curriculums, techniques. They have an effect, right? Because if you're playing to win that rule set, you develop a game arguably around winning that rule set. Do you think then having a submission only element in a rule set is a more pragmatic way of developing better jiu-jitsu than something that's a bit more something that more than a rule set, more grey areas?
It allows you. I think so. Absolutely, it allows, you know, someone to really not consider the points aspect. If somebody's considering the points aspect from minute 0 to minute 10, you know, it will really shape a game differently, because you might get two people, I don't know, stood on their feet, like staying away from each other, trying to wait until, you know, the last few minutes to score upon each other, or looking just to stay safe, you know. With a submission only rule set for the first half of the match, there's no real need to stay safe, you know.
Yeah,
we can jump right in if need be.
Yeah.
You know? Again, no matter what rule set you have, you're always going to have people playing the rules. right? So
Of course, yeah.
I just think it's a bit harder to play the rules in ADCC.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. It avoids that kind of subtle gamesmanship, perhaps. Now, there's been new rule sets in the last sort of 3-4 years. We've seen all sorts of new tournament ideas come up, from submission only style to round robins to quintet and team tournaments. If you could create a rule set, what kind of rule set would you create? Would it be more along the submission only? Would it be a wrestling style tag team? What kind of stuff would you
Hmm.
like to do if you could create
Yeah,
one?
all this new stuff is great. It's great that people are experimenting with rule sets. I really like the quintet style.
Yeah,
I think that
so cool.
team style is a fantastic idea,
Yeah,
and I think that should be continued further. Like
yeah,
no time limit submission only matches again are all well and good, but for the spectator, they're they're not great.
right. Yeah,
I think to watch something like a quintet, like I would so much prefer to watch a quintet style or an ADCC style tournament than no time limit submission only. Although no time limit submission only, you do have that. Okay, that's kind of like, you could always argue that's a purest form of grappling, right? No points, and just until somebody gives up.
right. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what.
yeah. Old school. Yeah, it's very.
Yeah. Like, as in there is a kind of purity to that. Um, to answer to your question, I don't. I haven't thought of a rule set myself, but I've always leaned towards the ADCC rule set.
Yeah, fantastic. And I know you've competed a bit with the Fight to Win guys. What is it that you like about being on the Fight to Win shows? I know you said to me that they're very entertaining to be a part of and to
Yeah.
also to watch. What is it that they do really well that you found you really
So,
enjoy?
Seth and Missy and all the people on Fight to Win, they have their method of producing a show like dialed in. They've done so many. They're just fantastic at it, and the show runs so smoothly, and it's so well produced, and and they kind of, sometimes they go from city to city each week and do these shows.
Wow.
So like setting up these shows from like cities across the country within the space of a week is crazy, but they're still able to do it and produce a good product at the end of it. And what they've done is produce a platform for people who wouldn't have had another platform. All of a sudden you get these people that are on Flow Grappling that without Fight to Win, they wouldn't have matches on Flow Grappling. They wouldn't have people seeing them in a light. Okay, this person, even though they're a purple belt, they're competing on what's technically a pro show,
Yeah.
and it's giving them this exposure which otherwise they wouldn't have had. So I think they've done a great thing for grappling and jiu-jitsu as a whole.
Yeah, shout out to Fight to Win and Seth and the team. Keep doing what you're doing, even though we're in the lockdown period. Once we get out of it, yeah, stoked to see
Yeah.
those shows going back live again. Now, I just wanted to touch on a couple of things, Benny, with regards to training outside of the gym, the outside of the mat time.
Hmm.
There's always the constant debate: does any kind of strength and conditioning or training outside of the jiu-jitsu gym help with jiu-jitsu, or does it just take away from getting better at jiu-jitsu? Do you train outside of uh of the jiu-jitsu gym yourself? Do you ever do, like, when it comes to running or lifting or any things like that?
Yeah, I do. I like to run. Um, Running I like just for the pure like oxygen in the lungs. Doing cardio makes me. I mean, wrestling and doing jiu-jitsu is a form of cardio anyway.
Yeah,
But sometimes we can't do. Sometimes we don't have the training partners. Sometimes the gym's closed, as we are now. And running's a great way to get that. To get that lungs, get those lungs full. Get them working, and to
yeah,
simulate that kind of work. I always feel fit when I'm running regularly. So I always try and keep my running up. Sometimes it's hard, and there's lots of other training things going on.
yeah,
But in terms of lifting, yes, I do it. Um, not as much as one would expect. It's important, but I don't like feeling, especially when I lift with my legs. I feel very sore and stiff for a few days afterwards, and I find that takes away from my training, like on a wrestling or jiu-jitsu level.
yeah. Interesting. Yeah, and also to put it into perspective for people that are listening, you're training 2-3 times a day on the
Hmm.
mats. let alone to go and lift or run around that. So it's not just like you're training a couple of times a week on the mats and then you're lifting around that and feeling sore. It's you're actually 2 to 3 times a day, every day, and then training around that. When it just touching on the running a little bit, what kind of format of running do you use time and time again to kind of get your results? Are you a 5K, 10K? Is it sprints? Is it hills? What do you use all the time to kind of, because it works?
My standard is 5K. I just try and run 5K as fast as I possibly can. And that's kind of something that I've always had. I will incorporate longer runs, maybe once every 6 weeks or something like that, just to test, or say if I wake up with a ton of energy that I need to get rid of, I will just go and blast out like 12, 15K, I don't know. I'll do a longer run. But my staple's 5K for sure. I just try and run that. And as I say, I do okay. I can run some half decent times for 5K. Even though I'm slightly heavier.
Yeah. How much you weigh when it comes to competition? Is there kind of like a weight category that you gravitate towards now, like on the regular, or do you?
Yeah, so ADCC would be under 88 kilos. That's the weight category that I have gone higher with that. I have done trials at under 99 kilos with a lot bigger boys. But my level of performance is the best at under 88 kilos, and that's 194 pounds.
194 pounds. Okay. And when it comes to cutting down for that, what's your kind of go-to when it comes to training camp time and you're trying to get the weight off? Are you someone that like diets over time? Do you crash it a couple of weeks before? Do you water load? What are your kind of go-tos for getting to the 88 category?
So with grappling, you need to focus on that. You shouldn't be cutting you should be cutting very little water, to be honest.
Right.
Ideally, you should diet off most of your weight. I mean, 5 pounds or something like prior isn't gonna affect you too much. But if you start getting over that, you might be looking at performance going down, especially in formats like IBGF, where you might weigh in and then be on the mats in 10 minutes competing. Gives you very, very little time for your body to rehydrate.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind, your body can only supposedly rehydrate with 1 liter of fluids per hour.
Right.
That's supposedly the level of scientifically. ADCC give you like 2 or 3 hours depending on when your category starts.
Okay.
So again, that you could probably cut like 2 or 3 kilos there. So like 6 pounds, and rehydrate safely. That's kind of what I tend to do. I'll diet my way down to 200 pounds, and then I'll just cut 6 just before or whatever I need to. Sometimes it's harder. Sometimes, like I did a lot of like strength work prior to the ADCC finals, just gone, and I found my weight cut really difficult because I'd put on a lot of weight. So I almost cut from like nearly 220 pounds all the way down to 194.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was a long cut, and I did it in the end, and it was no drama. There was no chance of me not making the weight, but I was just fantasizing about food the whole time.
Yeah,
it's very hard.
Yeah. Getting the fantasies and the cravings for what it is. When it comes to that, what's the things that you crave the most? For me, I always find I get dreams of eating cake. It's a bizarre thing, like cake comes into it, and I'm not really a massive cake eater, but when it comes to cutting, what's your kind of like craving that you dream about the most?
Yeah, I think your mind plays tricks on you, doesn't it? It's like it makes you crave something that isn't. It's like being a pregnant woman. It makes you crave something that you'd never think of. That you never think of usually. Mine, I always crave things like cinnamon rolls.
That's the one.
Yeah, cinnamon rolls.
Like the Cinnabons.
Yeah.
And now you're a strong chap, and you sit at 200 pounds, and you get that weight off. Now, believe it or not, anyone gets injured when it comes to jiu-jitsu, even the strongest of the strong. And I'm sure you've had your fair share of injuries along the way. And you mentioned at brown belt that you had the knee injury. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what your approach is to dealing with injuries psychologically, and how that might have changed over the years from your early days to now as an experienced black belt competitor and coach.
So I mean, having my injury when I did, it was a blessing and a curse, really. I mean, competing at the highest, trying to compete at the highest level, training to compete at the highest level, you're going to really open yourself up to the possibility of injury, right?
Sure.
And I recognized that. I was like, when it happened to me, and I was told that, so the injury that I had, I tore my ACL, my MCL, and my meniscus all in once.
Wow.
And put full tears. So it's known as, they call it the terrible triad in sports. And it's an injury that many people they don't recover from properly. It's first of all, it's a long time out because you have to wait for your MCL to heal before they'll actually complete the ACL surgery. And then the post-surgery recovery from the ACL operation is 9 months.
Wow.
9 months.
Was that a tendon? Did you have a graft from hamstring for that?
I did, and that's ever so painful. You have to as soon as you have the surgery, you're just in bed afterwards, obviously, and you still have to try and, the first week after surgery is very important. You have to put that movement in your hamstring, otherwise it will just form in a way that doesn't allow you to get that movement. So it's basically giving yourself a hamstring tear every morning. Wow. It's very, very painful. Yeah. And I struggled with that a lot. And just knowing that it's such a long road ahead. I mean, how I dealt with it, in answer to your question, I focused on my recovery, put everything into recovering. So I was doing over an hour of work a day on just strengthening my knees, whether it be pre-operation or the 9 months that I did post-op. I was just focused on strengthening my legs and getting them back to 110% before I came back. The next thing is definitely the confidence in a sport like when we're grappling, when people are actively attacking the joints that you just injured. For example, if I'm sat in a heel hook on my left knee, where I just know that I've had surgery, I've spent £7,000 on surgery to recover, and a year of my life, it's going to alter the way you deal with that heel hook.
Absolutely, it
really is. You're going to it's going to make you panic. Panicking is not the way to deal with somebody attacking you in a grappling sense. Certainly in heel hooks.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, panic cost you the knee again if you're not careful. How did you deal with the initial phases of panic going back to rolling? Then what was the kind of process of calming that down?
Tapping early.
Why?
Tapping early, and just as I say, everything goes away after a while. Everything does. It's all, we're training. So again, it's just retraining yourself to understand the positions, to recognize whatever position you're in and act accordingly. Not to, to just, a lot of people when they first start learning leg locks, leg locks as an example, just as we're on the subject of the knee. They'll just, rotate, just rotate in any way and pull my leg out. And that can obviously, if you rotate the wrong way, you could be breaking your own knee. So it's very important to come at these positions from a position of knowledge, and deal with them in that sense. Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to end up hurting yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So focusing on recovery. Point number one, focus on the recovery, not so much the injury. And then point number two, study positions that may compromise that injury or that joint, and become knowledgeable there before you start.
Yeah, and understand the that it's going to take a while for your head, not just in your body but in your mind, right? In your head, you're going to be not sharp. You're going to be, your body's going to automatically panic. You just have to train with the right people, not rush it, and ease yourself back in. I mean, I was very, very cautious not to go back to rolling too early, no matter how difficult it was. I was in the gym every day. I was still teaching classes after I recovered enough, because I wanted to get back, and I just wanted to be in the gym.
Absolutely.
So, but then just if you're you want to roll, you rolling yet? No, I can't. I just can't.
Yeah,
can't do it.
Yeah,
gotta be sensible.
Yeah, sensible. Yeah, it's true. I can vouch for that from my own recent experience. Actually, I found that doing my rehab at the gym is a good way to do it. So, can you do you're going to be going to jiu-jitsu. It's in your schedule anyway. Your timing, your timetable is there to go into class. Well, if you're not going to go to class and roll and train because you're injured, go to the gym and do your rehab. You're still going to go there. So it was a way I found of kind of alleviating the angst of needing to be at the jiu-jitsu gym.
Exactly.
I could still be there, but I'd just be doing, you guys were doing I'd watch the technique, see what was being taught, and then when it came to sparring, I'd go off and do rehab stuff, and I found that was a real nice way of kind of still being in the gym and getting the kind of the vibes, but not being not being
still
lazy
being
either, still just being there.
Indeed.
And getting it done. Yeah, it's a positive one. Now, perhaps some people don't know, but you're trained as a English language teacher as well as a full-time assassin. What are some of the things that you've learned just purely from teaching jiu-jitsu? Because as we know, teaching jiu-jitsu and performing jiu-jitsu are two different categories, and not everyone is blessed with the ability to do both. What have you learned from, teaching jits more than actually doing it?
Teaching, so first of all, that people learn in different ways, all right? So the traditional way of teaching a traditional jiu-jitsu class would be like to show up, show technique, have people drill it, and then just roll at the end. It's all well and good. I mean, that's going to work. Like it works, but I mean, there are ways that can accelerate people's learning. Not just from learning to teach, like actually stand at a whiteboard and teach English. That helped me with projecting my voice, controlling a class, looking at, seeing who was in my class and acting accordingly, not just teaching something that I wanted to teach and making it about me.
Right.
I think it's important that someone from a teaching perspective to see who's in their class and adjust accordingly. In jiu-jitsu, it's absolutely useless me teaching reverse de la Riva, kiss of the dragon to a class of white and blue belts. And then, but again, it might be beneficial for me to, if I've got brown and lots of brown and purple belts to teach. I don't know. I could have a certain class planned, but maybe they benefit from learning a toe hold to knee bar. So it's being fluid with that approach, I think, first and foremost. Now, one of my students back in Bournemouth, John is the head professor of physio at Bournemouth University. But he's a very, very clever man and gave me a lot of insight. But he also gave us insight into teaching and different ways that we can, help teach people. Or not help teach people, in different ways we can teach in order to benefit a wider spectrum of people.
Right.
He insisted to give people more freedom to try to elicit and work things out by themselves.
Yeah.
Say, offer them a problem, like give them a problem, and then help them, like maybe suggest that they try and work out the solution.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's a far more interactive, isn't it, than just being told here is
exactly.
A and here is the answer to A. It doesn't really give any discovery.
And that sits well with me because, again, I know that, as I say, I never want anyone to think that I'm teaching them from my perspective of being, I'm the be all and end all, and what I say is gospel. Something like grappling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is certainly not the case. I would always encourage people that was training under me to go and further their knowledge base. Because I don't know everything, but I'll help with things that I do know, and I'll always encourage your training. And but you might be better at seeking knowledge from other places as well. So that's always been my approach.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think there's definitely a lot more scope, as we've seen in the recent years, with looking at how academia teaches principles, topics, data, that kind of stuff, and then stealing from those guys and transferring it into the jiu-jitsu world, right? Because jiu-jitsu is such an open-ended, infinite landscape. It's very hard to boil it down and sometimes systemize it and teach it. But academia have been teaching things to people for a very long time with really good results. They definitely know a thing or two about that process. Yeah, that's fascinating. That chat from the university gave you guys some insight there on
Yeah.
on the power of
Yeah.
discovery. Yeah, that's very cool. I guess your approach to competition, Benny. Now, I know you've said this before at class and at Lions, but there's three things that you often say to your students when it comes to
Hmm.
approaching competition. There's three things that you need. What are those three things?
Yeah, so I always say this even to people that's competing for the first time. It's like it's great that people want to compete, and like I'm all for getting everybody, whoever wants to compete, and just starting off competing, But I think we can, by giving people something that they need to achieve before they compete, um, is important, and helps them to prepare. So first thing I'd always say is know the rules. Okay, so knowing the rules, and that means in whatever rule set, usually it's going to be IBJJF if they were looking at a jiu-jitsu or a grappling standpoint for somebody's first tournament. It's going to be IBJJF. So know the rules, understand where your scoring points are, understand the theory of advantages, understand where the penalty points come from. That's of great importance. Secondly, is be in shape. What I mean by that is that you've got enough rolling rounds in. It's not going to come to a 5 minute match when you get on the match. Get on the mat. Everyone's going to be gassed in their first match. I mean, it's just how it is. Your arms are going to fill up with blood, and you're going to be like, ugh, that's just the way it is. But preparing for that is important, I think, and being able to deal with that. And then lastly, having a game plan, just a little bit of a game plan. Not so you just go out into the match like, oh, I'm going to see what happens. No, it's going to be something that you go for. Maybe you don't get that. Maybe the whole plan goes to shit, But maybe, in my opinion, it's just better to have something to aim for rather than just initially going at it, with no direction.
Yeah,
That's what I ask for people that are my students
yeah,
before they compete.
yeah. That's fantastic. It's a great checklist. I wish I'd heard that on my first few competitions. That would have made a big difference. The being in shape thing, I always have understood. Just if you're going to
Yeah,
compete head to head with someone, like put the effort in. But the game plan one and the rule set definitely are two areas I didn't have a clue when I first started. I think my first
yeah,
competition was a sub only format. I just knew
yeah.
I had to finish the guy quick. That's
Mm.
all I
It
knew.
doesn't.
Yeah, game plan's important too.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be anything like. It doesn't have to be, something super complicated. Just I don't know. Just like I just ask that they work on a takedown, or that they work on a way to pull guard that fits into their game. That's all I'm suggesting as a game plan. Not anything else or anything past that.
Yeah, nothing too elaborate. Is that something that you encourage students to work with their coaches just to kind of talk through before
Yeah,
they go?
absolutely. I always offer myself up as like, okay, so maybe some of my students return to competition after a while, or maybe this is their first competition. And I say, okay, well, we'll roll the next round, and you show me what you're going to do when we go out there.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, very
when you
cool.
go out there, you show me what like, and I just want to see what's up,
Yeah,
see what they're going to do.
yeah, yeah, amazing. Yeah, that helps a lot. Now I know you're involved with the Scramble guys. You're sponsored by the Scramble company. How did you get involved with Scramble? Who are they for people that don't know? And if you don't know, how dare you get on it and discover? But how did you get involved with those guys? And what's your kind of setup with them?
Scramble have been awesome, and friends with me, from, well, since I was a late blue purple belt. Really, they began sponsoring me while I was a purple belt. Have always been awesome, and as you know, they produce really top quality stuff,
Yeah,
and they do a lot for the jiu-jitsu community as well, especially back in the UK. And obviously they've been involved in lots of things, and really have grown into like a major worldwide brand now.
wow, yeah, yeah, yeah,
So yeah, they're available all over the world. How did I get to know them? Okay, so a lot of them train jiu-jitsu, and a lot of them train jiu-jitsu, where I'm from, in Bournemouth and Poole. So that's originally how I got to know Matt and Ben.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, they're Ben Tong actually used to come and train and do striking at Epon.
Wow.
Um, so that's how me and Ben originally met. He's one of the founding members of Scramble, along with Matt Benyon.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, shout out to the Scramble boys. Nice
Yeah.
one for hooking Benny up and keeping him on his path. Yeah, it's always appreciated, isn't it, to have
Yeah,
some.
anything that I'd ask for them, the answer would always be yes, and they've been, as I say, really supportive of me throughout. So yeah, I can't be thankful enough towards them.
Yeah,
They're great.
fantastic. Yeah, that's a massive blessing indeed. Now, Benny, if people want to follow you on Instagram and see some of the content you're putting out in this strange lockdown period through Lions, how can they do that for your Insta and some of the live content?
My Insta's just at Dyson BJJ. That's all it is. Nice and simple.
Fantastic. And then the Lions MMA Van City page, you can see some of your live sessions going right. And
Yeah,
some of the drills
yeah.
and stuff people can be doing at home.
Yeah, I'm just doing a basic class. I've put in some technique content, but it's just a basic class, 5:30 on a Tuesday and a Thursday. That's Pacific time.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you, Benny, so much for coming on the show and taking time out of the quarantine schedule. It's been fantastic. And well, if we're still in lockdown, I might be getting you back on next week.
My pleasure, brother. My pleasure.
Cool. All right, well, we'll take care.
Take care.
This episode of the Move Mind podcast was brought to you by CBD Mountain, the sport and fitness CBD. Head over to cbdmountain.com for a range of soft gels, skin balms, oils and vapes, and purchase online and have the premium quality CBD delivered directly to your door. cbdmountain.com.